Just get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome along to another one in the series of SiteTech's Stay Connected webinars in partnership with Trimble. Today's webinar we've titled Converting PDFs to 3D Models using Trimble Business Center. So we've got quite a lot of attendees on here today. Just on a quick look at the participants list, a lot of names that I recognise, but for those of you that don't know me, my name's Brian Core and I'm part of the sales team here at SiteTech. We're now on to our 6th webinar session. I've got to say they've been a great success so far, so thanks to everyone that's already joined in and participated in the webinars. Like the previous ones, what we're going to be doing is we'll be holding a Q&A session at the end, so we'd love you to all get involved in that if you've got any questions. So today, again, we are joined by professional service consultant Dan Hamilton of Trimble. Got to say he's titled professional service consultant, but he is a specialist in Trimble Business Center. So we do want to say thanks, Dan, for coming on and joining us and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Today, what we're going to be looking at, as we said, was converting PDFs to 3D models. I would say in the industry, we're still at times provided with design information in a basic PDF format, but we do need it in a 3D workable format. So what Dan's going to do today is he's going to give us a working guide through to processing the PDF file into converting it into a 3D quantifiable model, which we can then use for volume and material estimation. So over to you, Dan, if you can get started.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. So yeah, I'll get started. And as Brian said, if you've got any questions, chuck them in the Q&A or in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So there we go. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is creating quantifiable 3D models from a PDF. Generally, this would be used at a sort of a tender stage when you can't get your hands on a 3D CAD or a DGN or something like that, where they're only going to give you PDFs. They're not going to give you any DXFs or anything like that. So you can basically take a PDF, import it into Business Center. You can import the vector data, so we'll go over the different types of PDFs as well. You can then create services that you can compare and create cut film maps and generate reports. And you can also visualize the project in Google Earth, providing you've georeferenced it and you've got you know what coordinate system it's in, which is quite handy as well. So we'll go through all of that stuff today. So the different types of positioning we can have in Trimble Business Center. So there's a couple where, first one, very basic, just place image. So if you don't have a coordinate system, you don't know any site coordinates or anything like that, you just basically want to get a drawing in there, do a bit of a takeoff or an estimation of quantities. You can place it by using a scale bar or a known distance or a bearing or something like that, where you'll have the correct scale. You could have the correct orientation, but you may not have the correct position, which you could then move after the fact when you've built a model or something like that. And the second way of positioning would be to georeference it. So if you knew, if you have known coordinates on the drawing, if you know the position of certain features on the drawing, you can then basically georeference that image where it's going to shift it, scale it, and orientate it for you. And then you can bring in the information and start building a model in the correct position, which you could then send to Google Earth and position it and visualize it on Google Earth. Now, the two types of PDFs, so you can get the raster image, which is, it's not the best. So if you bring a raster image in, you can bring it into Business Center, but what that means is you're going to have to digitize or trace over all the lines one by one. So there's not a lot of smarts in it. So that's one way of doing it. And the best way by far is by bringing in a vector PDF. Now it's all down to the way it's saved or the way it's created. So if you get someone's created drawings from CAD or something like that, and they've saved it as a PDF, it's generally going to be a vector PDF. And also, if you have a vector PDF, you can also save the layers into the PDF as well. So when we suck it into Business Center, we can bring in the native layers as well, which is quite handy when looking at the data. So what I'm going to do now is basically just give you a demonstration of bringing a PDF in and what we can do with it. I've got a couple of screens where I'll show you through what I just had on the previous slide. So the first one here, I've got basically a clean Trimble Business Center project open. I have basically, I should have had a couple of layers there. What I'm going to do is create a couple of layers first. So I know I'm going to have design contours and existing ground contours. So what I'm going to do first of all is just come in here and create a couple of layers. Now these should have been set up in my template beforehand, but I'm going to create a new layer group and call this one design, and another new one called existing. So this just creates layer groups, which helps for separation of layers. And then I'm going to create another 2 layers. I'm going to create one called design contours. And I'm going to give it a blue color and a bit of a line weight to it. And then I'm going to put it in the layer group called design. And then I'm going to create another new one called existing contours. And I'll make these ones green. Oops. I'll make these ones green and give them a bit of a line weight. And I will chuck these on the existing group layer. So now I have a couple of layers that I can use when I bring in the information. Now, I would definitely recommend setting up your layer groups and your layers prior to doing any work in Trimble Business Center. Set these up, save it as a template, and then whenever you do a job, you've got all your layers, your standard layers set there that you can use. It makes things a hell of a lot easier. So what I'm going to do now is just bring in a PDF. So I've got a PDF here saved on my computer. I'm just going to drag it and drop it in.
So while Dan's loading this, I don't know how many of you are aware, but we are offering at the moment 30-day Business Center demo licenses. So if anyone wishes to download Business Center, or if you already have it and want to explore the other modules, if you go onto the website, just the www.sitechukanireland.com, there is a tab there for a download document that you'll be able to type your details into, and then Dan himself will send you a 19-digit code that you can type into Business Center, and you'll get access to every module on it. So just seen one of the questions coming in. So Business Center has changed now, and it's since version 5, it's merged into just one format now, Business Center, rather than there being 2 divisions. So one of the questions is the function that we're going to be using converting the 2D PDF into 3D, is it available in every module? So the module that's available in is the site modeling module. But what we can do is we can also provide you with a Trimble Business Center matrix, and in the matrix it will provide you with every single function that Business Center can do and what module it lies under. So if you want that, we can get that over to you as well.
Yeah, so yeah, site modeling is the as Brian said. So what I've got now is a PDF that's loaded in, so just drag and drop it in. Don't do it while you're on a WebEx because it will crash. So now this is basically just, it's not positioned or anything like that. It's not scaled or anything like that. It's just there. So what I need to do now is, there's a couple of things I could do. I could georeference the image if I knew any coordinates, and knew sort of two positions on the drawing and two positions in Trimble Business Center, and then I could position it. I don't know that, so what I'm going to do is use the scale bar and just ignore the feet, but we're just going to go in meters anyway. But so I'm going to use scale bar and known bearing. So if I only knew a distance, I could do a known distance by using grid lines or something. I could do a line with a bearing and distance, and I'm going to use scale bar here. So you'll notice when you bring it in the Project Explorer, the little symbol in the drawing there. So this one has a little V there, which means it's a vector PDF. You probably can't see it, but if you do it yourself, you'll notice a little V. If it doesn't have that little V, it's most probably a raster image, and you won't be able to do a lot with it. So when I come in to do the scale bar and known bearing, I can go to the scale bar, and I've got to give it a distance. So I'm going to use this 120 here. And you do from pixel and to pixel. So from 0, and you might notice that there's a little X, blue X popping up. That means I can snap to the PDF, which is the good thing about a vector PDF. So I can snap to 0, and then I can snap to 120. So I know I've got that correct distance. And then I use a bearing, so I can use a bearing from the north arrow here. So if I use a bearing of 0, I can go from the bottom of the north arrow to the top of the north arrow, and then compute. So now that's rotated and scaled my image, basically. So it's the right scale and the right orientation, but it's probably in the wrong position. But we're not worried about that, because all we're going to do is use this to get some initial volumes from it. We're not going to use it for any setting out or anything like that. Now, on that, I probably wouldn't use a PDF drawing to go and set out off of. I'd probably get some digital drawings in before I did that to make sure and check it properly. But you can if you need to. So if I'm going to close this now. So basically, my drawing's in there. And now if I go to the CAD menu here and go to import vector PDF. So what I'm going to do now is import all the data from the vector PDF. So you have a few options here. If you have multiple PDFs, you can choose which pages you want to bring in. And you can choose to join dashed lines, for example. So sometimes contours are dashed, or they've got a gap in between where the numbers are. So you can choose to join those together. And you can also choose to preserve the native layers, the native PDF layers. So if the person who's made the drawing has saved the layers in there, the layers will come across as well. So if I hit import now, that's going to import all the data from the vector PDF. And now if I go to my view filter manager and turn off the georeferenced image, I can see that all that information there has come across, and now it's usable in TBC, essentially as a CAD drawing now. But you'll notice that the layers, the person who's done the PDF hasn't saved the layers into the PDF, so it's just come in as the color and the thickness of the line work. So what I would need to do now, if I want to take these design contours, for instance, I could select one and then go select similar, and that will select all my design contours. And what I can do now is just relayer these. So if I had my layers that I set up earlier, I could just put them on there, but I'm going to just hit spacebar to create a new layer, and I will call this design contours, and I'll make them blue, and then close that. And now that I can turn them off, so everything that I've done I'll just turn off. So essentially what I need to do now is just go through, relayer things, clean it all up. And as I clean them up, I turn them off. So then eventually I'll have nothing on my screen and I know I've cleaned everything up then. So if I just jump across to one that I've done earlier. So this is one I pulled in earlier. So this is my georeferenced image and I've cleaned up the contours a bit now. So I've got design contours here and I've got existing ground contours here as well. So I turn that image off and turn on my design contours. I can see I've got them in there. So if I go to 3D now, and if I just put these side by side, and I tip the 3D one up, you can see it's flat. They've basically all got 0 elevation. So if I click on one of these and look at the properties of it, it's got no elevation. So nothing's elevated yet, and that's what you get when you bring in a PDF. So the next thing is to elevate everything from the PDF. Now to do that, we can use some smart tools in TBC. So we're going to use the data prep tab here and use the elevate commands. So what I'll do first is I'll turn the georeferenced image on because that's got the text on it. And then what I can do is elevate my first contour. And I'll just choose not to increment. And I'll just say, first one is 6220. And I can click on the 6220 line here. And it says the contour is elevated to 6220. And if I zoom out in my 3D, I can see I've got one contour line up there. And the next one I'll do is 6230, which is this one up here. So now I have 2 elevated contours. I can see them up there. And one thing I do when I elevate stuff is I go to display options and I say display an alternate color, which basically, if anything has got no elevation, it will display gray, and anything that's elevated, it will display blue. So now I can look at my drawing and say, I've only got 2 elevated lines there. So we could do that. We could go through the whole drawing and elevate them like that, but that'll take a while. So what I'm going to do is use contours by crossing. And because we have 2 elevated lines, what I can do now is just join these lines up and just elevate a whole bunch in one go. So we can see there now that I have all those contours elevated. So I can then, as long as I'm crossing 2 contours, I can go through and just elevate everything pretty easily. So I just go through and do this for the whole job basically, and get everything elevated. And then once it's all elevated, I can then create surfaces, and then I could do volumes between them. So once I've done the design contours, I then go and do the existing ground contours, and I've got some contour labels over here that I could use for that. So I go back to contour. I'm just going to turn that off. I'd use 6250 and elevate this one here, and then 6275. Elevate this one here, and then I can use contours by crossing, and then I can go from here to here and then elevate all my existing ground contours. So then I've got 2 surfaces. I can do a surface comparison and then start to pull some volumes out of it for my earthworks quantities. So it's pretty handy. All this has come from a PDF. And we can get some fairly accurate earthworks volumes out of it. Sorry, I've got a delay on my screen. Sorry, I'm moving too fast. So that's essentially what it is. Pulling a PDF in, sucking the vector information in, cleaning that information up in terms of layering, things like that, and then elevating that data and building surfaces. and then you can use that elevated information, that surface information, to build reports for what you need on your job. If you had to, you could then send surfaces out to be set out or put into machine control. But I would imagine once you've won a tender, you would receive the digital files, the CAD, DXF or DWG files or whatever Genio files that you could then use for set out, or verify your PDF drawings just to make sure, because there could be some inaccuracies in the PDF for set out purposes. And then, so that was basically using a scale bar and known bearing. If I come into this drawing here, this is one where I knew the position, so I was able to georeference the image. So if I turn on the image here, I had some survey marks dotted around the job where I knew the position of. There was some control points somewhere where I knew the grid positions of them, and I could click on these. So if I come into place image here, if I go to Georeferenced Vector PDF, if I come into Georeferenced Vector PDF, no, sorry. What it basically asks you to do is to pick a pixel on the PDF, and it will also ask you to give it a grid position. So essentially you just need to know where on the drawing and and the grid position for it. You need to know two of these, and it will shift, scale and orientate your drawing, which is what we've done here. We sucked in the information. This one here is in OS 10.02, so it's in National Grid. And what we can do then is, I've done a full takeoff on this, so I've classified these areas. I can build a takeoff report. So I have a takeoff report here that I was able to build from a PDF. So I can pull in, different types of paving, different layers of my footpath and my road, my building pads, get different areas, different volumes, and I can even assign costs to it. So I can pull off a material cost summary, a bid price summary, and the different areas on my site, doing a takeoff. And what I can also do is take these here. I can then come to the Google Earth function and I can then send this off to Google Earth for visualization and just to check where it is in the world. Now, because I've got this set to OS 10.02 and I know the position of the project, this should come in the right position. Somewhere in Surrey, hopefully, or Sussex. So you see there, basically it's an expansion of a factory. We have a road coming around. And I think this is a great tool for presenting to clients or to a site team, where are we building, what's going on. This could be used in a day-to-day plan or something like that, where you can show people where they're working, things like that. So on that note, that was basically a quick run through of bringing a PDF in, creating a 3D model. In summary, what I would do is make sure I have my layers, standard layers that I use in my company, saved as a template in Trimble Business Center. when I bring in my PDF, I'm going to either position it using a scale bar or a non-varying a distance, or I'm going to georeference my image. Georeference images are better because you can then use it in Google Earth. It's in the right position. So if you ever needed to use it for set out or anything like that, it's in the right position. I'd suck in my vector PDF data, clean it up, elevate it, build surfaces, and then go from there. So that's essentially the workflow.
So Dan, we've got a question here. Can the data be pushed to Trimble Connect for use on Site Vision?
Yes. Yeah. So if you could build a TTM surface that you could use to push to Site Vision. Yes, you could do that.
Okay. Just wait and see if we've any more questions coming through. I don't know if anyone has any more questions. So what Dan's just went through there is, I mean, that's just one of the tools, one of many, which is available in TBC for data prep. And as I mentioned earlier, we do encourage you to go onto the Trimble website and download Trimble Business Center if you don't already have it on your laptop or desktop. And we are more than happy to provide you with a 30-day license, which will give you access to everything. And once you start using it, you know, you might already use a particular software and think that that's your preference and you don't want to change, but you'll find in the past few years how Trimble Business Center has just developed, and it's so powerful now. So with the 30-day license code, you might find some features that you never even knew existed. And I'm sure some people might be getting back to work, some people not, with obviously safe social distancing. So we could at times set up maybe some one-to-one sessions with some people online if it's a request, and go through some of the features as well as a online demo.
Cool. One other thing I just left out earlier was that you can load this PDF file. You can drag it over your 3D image as well. So once you build your surface from it, you can drag your PDF file over it, which is quite nice to look at. You can sort of see all the notes and things like that over the 3D surface.
That's a great visual tool. I've got another question, Dan. Just are the layers that you commonly use saved within your feature code library file?
No, so it's not in the feature code library. It's saved as a project template. So basically what you need to do is set up a blank TBC project, and then you basically go through and you usually go to the CAD table and you go to your layer manager and you create all your layers and your layer groups and all that. And once you're happy with all your layer groups, you would then go to file and then save as a template. And that's going to save your blank TBC project as a template. So then every time you open up, you can open up that blank template with all your layers in it.
We'll just maybe see. I don't see many more questions coming through at the moment. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box there. Just give it a second more, Dan.
No worries.
Doesn't maybe look like any more's come through. So just want to say thanks for everyone for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed the sessions, and we do have a copy of all the webinars that we've done. The videos are online at www.sitetechukandIreland.com. So feel free to go there, navigate to the Stay Connected webinar session, and you'll be able to see the previous 5 sessions we've done and this one as well. And again, feel free, download TBC and we'll get you a 30-day license to get you up and running. And thanks very much for joining.